Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again. The start of the new year is upon us very soon. If it hasn't actually happened yet for you, it's 2026. And what better way for us to usher in the new year than to have a new guide dedicated for new players? Because today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be focusing on the 10 worst mistakes, or really the 10 best things a player can do early on in their Wuthering Waves playthrough to make the most out of all the time that they're spending in the game. That is going to be the focus. And think about it from the perspective of a player who's just started out, that has a meta mindset that's trying to complete as much content as possible. And by that, I mean get the fastest clear or get the fastest route to endgame modes like Double Pawns Matrix, like Whimpering Waste, like Tower of Adversity, so you can claim all of these resetting rewards, this Astrite, these credits, these level up materials, so that you can build your other units. It's one of the most important things for a lot of players to get through, and we'll be walking through the fastest ways to actually get there. So, without further ado, let's start off with tip, or really, mistake number 1. And that's going to be not focusing on your UL level enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Union level essentially in Wuthering Waves it's going to be your main source of progression. And it's going to be as follows. There are about 80 Union levels in the game. I'm Union level 80 myself, and that's basically the soft cap. And as you can see over here, there is a SOL3 phase associated with 10 levels going up. And when you upgrade these phases, you essentially gain access to more and more materials from the challenges that you face. You can see over here, we've got a forgery challenge, right? I'm on SOL3 Phase 8. That means when I clear this, I have a chance of getting this gold drop. This is what you need to level up the highest level characters in the game. But you're not going to need this necessarily early on, because all you'll be on is SOL Phase 1. And then as you see over here, right, I'm only getting 800 credits. Only these blue and green mats that are only used for like low level units. And then as I increase, right, my phases go up. You see the credit amounts. They start going up too. I start getting more materials. And that's why raising this UL is so damn important early on in the game. The faster you're able to raise it up, the faster you're able to get resources. And as you can see over here, right, these are going to cost the same amount, right? When I'm on SOL Phase 1, it's going to cost 40 wave plates. When I'm on SOL Phase 8, it also costs 40 to do these too. You just get more efficiency for the wave plates that you're spending. And when wave plates are your daily constrained resource, that resets at a rate of about 10 every hour, so 24 hours to fill it back up. You're encouraged to log in every day, and of course, you want to make the most out of that free regenerating resource. So, I've explained to you a lot of the importance behind the UL, your Union level. Now I gotta talk about all the ways to actually build it up, and that's with your Union EXP. And this is the thing. Union EXP is one of the easiest things to actually get in Wuthering Waves, because almost everything in the game just straight up gives it to you. The biggest source of your Union level experience early on in your playthrough, at least for older players, was simply doing your daily activity points. You can see it includes tasks as simple as just logging in or just spending your wayplates or doing quests. And as a reward, you actually get Union level experience for claiming all of these. One of the fastest ways to actually grab it. You also have, of course, as you can see from this document, your quests. And there's a reason why I decided to save up so many quests here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not because I don't want to play the character story quests, guys. It's because I wanted to show you all just how fast you're actually able to level up your Union level experience from all of this content that's available in the game. You're seeing that I'm at Union level 80. I've gotten all of this stuff, right? I'm maxed out. I still have all of these quests left to get even more Union level experience. So think about it from the perspective of a newer player, right? Think about this from the perspective of a newer player who has all of these ready to go and can just do all of them if they wanted to catch up. Players, if they're willing to dedicate time to spend on all of the content that's been built up from 1.0 until now, guys, it's capable for you to start off the game. And if you really do grind, you could get to UL 40 or 50 Get to SOL3 Phase 5 or 6 in like 1 or 2 days. And that's what you have in terms of leveling potential when there's this much content to do in the game. Another method is something that I've already covered before. The benefit of building up your union level. Spending wave plates also just gives you union level EXP. The last method is probably going to be one of the most common, and it's also going to be the one that that's going to take the longest to grind relatively compared to quests. And that's exploration, guys. You gain union level experience from basically unlocking anything on the map. And while my Lahai Roy map isn't looking that filled up right now, as you go ahead and you take a look at some of the past regions that I've done, there are many levels to be found, union level wise, across all these different places. And that's the thing, guys. It doesn't really matter what you do. There's a lot of experience available. It can take you up to the highest tiers if you do decide to grind. But no matter what you're doing, you will be progressing as long as you're not just sitting there not doing anything. So you can take your time if you want to, or you can bum rush it to get the highest rewards possible. And there's a reason why to bum rush. Because there's one constraint in this game from union levels that's really hard to make up unless you're willing to pay some cash. And that is, unfortunately, your weekly challenges. Union levels are really important to build up for a specific reason. You get more weekly boss mats being on SOL phases that are higher than the one that you're currently on. Right now, I'll be able to get 3 of these from completing a weekly boss at SOL 8. When I'm on phase 1, for example, this only gives like 1. So you are literally tripling the efficiency. And when you only get 3 runs of this a week, right? When you only get 3 runs of this a week, going from 1 to 3 is a massive increase. And that's why rushing these levels is so important early on, because the more time that you waste at these lower union levels, the less experience that you're going to be getting, or the less materials you're going to be getting overall. And when these are capped and you need them to level up your characters, let me show you. As an example over here. When these are capped and you need them to level up your characters' abilities to the highest levels possible to maximize their damage, you need a lot of these to get a lot of endgame builds into their final state. And this can be the #1 bottleneck for a lot of players if they fail to really recognize the value of these early on, or they skip them, or this is the worst case ever, they forget that they have their 3 weekly claims a week. Guys, for a player like me, that's 9 of these mats just gone. And that can be a lot to actually lose, especially when you need them for the newest character that you're trying to build. All right, now we've talked a lot about raising your union level. We talked a lot about the efficiencies. We talked a lot about the gains that you get from SOL phases, right? We talked about how you can bum rush them if you want, or you can just take your time. Now we got to talk about, though, one of the drawbacks of raising your SOL level. When you raise your level, guys, there's something that occurs. And I'll just show you some enemies to demonstrate it. The enemies turn higher level. These guys are level 87. That's because I'm on the highest SOL level. If you were at a lower level, these guys would be like level 30 or 40 or 50. What that means is that you can't just keep your characters the same and then raise your SOL level at the same time. You need to strengthen your characters at the same time. That's part of the progression. And when you have way greater efficiency on your resources, right? Remember, this is SOL 1. We only got baby shit here. And then at 8, we got a lot of stuff. You probably want to know the most efficient things to actually spend your resources, your wave plates on, while you're raising your SOL level. And this is the thing. It's partitioned into a couple of ways. You have one phase of the game before UL40, and then you're going to have another phase of the game after UL40. I consider the phase of the game before UL40 to be like the trial run, right? The training wheels. You don't gotta focus too much on gear. You don't gotta focus too much on like grinding echoes, any of that. But once you hit level 40 and beyond, that's when you have to really start focusing up when it comes to like building your characters. And you really gotta start focusing up when it comes to your resources. Let me explain why. So prior to UL40, you basically don't have a consistent way of grinding end game gear. And so what that means is that across these early levels, you should primarily focus on these things. Boss challenges, And this is going to be the crazy thing. Boss challenges and really nothing else. And this is why. Boss challenges are the only material in the game because these are individual for each character, right? And individual to each boss. This is the only resource in the game that you don't end up getting for free. Are you ready to see why? There are a lot of free rewards in this game. And one of the biggest examples of the free rewards is the New Voyage Celebration, which essentially is, for new players to the game, a way to complete a bunch of low difficulty missions. Like, you can see the task you're being asked to do over here, right?
Complete a main quest. Consume wave plates. Do these challenges. Try out these modes. Do all of these things. Explore the map.
These are just tasks that involve just playing the fucking game, right? Anyone's gonna do these if they're playing the game. They're very simple, very easy to do, very logical. And you can see the rewards that you're getting over here. Forgery premium supplies. What do these give you? The mats to level up your character's skills. You get these for free. Premium enclosure tanks. You don't even need wave plates to grind these, but you do get these for free. You also get experience potions, weapon EXP, and echo EXP. All of this stuff, right? You're literally getting for free from the game. And you also get credits too. My take is, take all the free things as far as you can take them. And don't spend any wave plates unless completely necessary and you're desperate on things like training challenges, simulation challenges, forgery challenges. Why? Because you're already getting them for free. Why would you spend your wave plates, your time-constrained resource that regenerates either by spending money or by solvents, which we'll cover later, another premium resource, right? Why would you spend them on stuff that you're already getting for free? This is the only thing you don't get for free. And so this is my strategy for newer players. Those aren't the only events in the game, right? There are clearly a lot more. There's all of this stuff over here, the Lahairoi Pioneers. You can see that this is giving out the skill mats as well, right? There's a lot of events. Take those free rewards as far as you can go. Don't spend any wave plates unless necessary. And then just spend your wave plates on the thing that can only be gotten by spending wave plates. Because there's no other way, ladies and gentlemen, to get these mats other than spending your wave plates. There are plenty of ways to get these, plenty of ways to get these, plenty of ways to get all this other stuff, except weekly boss mats. You get the message, right? And that's why I said this guide was going to be geared towards people who are trying to metagame. You can see we're getting a little bit sweaty over here. But when you have time-constrained resources, it's a gotcha. Sometimes that's something that you want to do. So yeah, the last thing that I'll say is that it's really, really, really important to hit those thresholds. Remember what I showed you before when it came to how the union levels are tiered out? If you're at union level 39, for example, right? And you have the opportunity to go do a quest, go grind a little bit, explore to get to union level 40, but your wave plates are like almost full, you should go grind, right? Even if your wave plates are like almost full and you really want to spend them, you should go grind to get to UL 40 because then you'll unlock a whole new set of challenges that are going to give you greater efficiency. So hold on to it. Wait until that next tier, do that SOL phase breakthrough, and then get a bigger set of rewards. Because the improvements, ladies and gentlemen, can be absolutely massive. And one of the best ways for me to show you those improvements is right here. So let's talk about gearing. That's going to be our third mistake. So, gearing. Easiest way to take a look at this is from Tacit Fields. One of the big things that I showed all of you, right, was that increase in SOL levels. This is the difference from SOL Phase 3 to SOL Phase 4. On SOL Phase 3, we have purple tuners and purple echoes. On SOL Phase 4, we upgrade to gold tuners and gold echoes. And so a lot of people might be thinking, Saint, SOL Phase 4 is at Union level 30. Why should we wait? Why should we wait until like 40 to do it? This is the reason why. You get about 10 tuners when you're at Phase 4. When you go to Phase 5 or Phase 6, I'm not super sure, I think it's Phase 5, it jumps up to 20. Tuners are, for the end game player, the most important and constrained resource when it comes to character building. These things. Because with the methods that I'll show you later in Echo building, this will be the one resource that you're always running out of when it comes to optimizing your characters. And so deciding to wait until a later SOL phase, even though the gold ones unlock at 4, means that you'll just get more for every wave plate that you spend. And when SOL Phase 3 enemies are like, guys, they're like really low leveled, you don't need gold echoes to be able to fight them at Phase 4. When you get to Beyond, that's where stuff starts getting important. Because you'll have the tacit fields to get the tubes and tuners that you need to level up your characters. And at Union level 40, you'll also unlock the full potential of something called your databank. Because your databank, ladies and gentlemen, is how you gain the ability to actually unlock that gold gear and that gold stuff in the first place. So let's focus on this. The databank goes hand in hand with gearing because of one simple process. Leveling it up requires you to be a certain SOL level. And the higher level you are, the better your drop rates are on gold echoes. It's easiest to show this in game. When you're at level 18, this is what the drop rate looks like. I have a 50% chance of getting a gold echo and a 50% chance of getting a purple echo. Purple echoes are fucking useless. When I go to 19, it's 80-20. Way better. 20, 80-20. When I get to 21, it turns into 100% gold. And so you might be wondering, saying this is just very easy. Get to 21, get to level 21. This is the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Level 21 requires you to be SOL Phase 5. What does that require? Union level 40. So basically, my advice to you is don't worry about echo farming too much and optimizing your gear until you're at the level where the game just makes it really, really, really fucking easy for you. Because by the time you're level 21, you'll have a 100% drop rate on your echoes and you'll get the maximum rewards possible from your tacit fields. So you're kind of just at the point where you're ready to grind and you're ready to gear. And most importantly of all, you're ready to get plus 25 echoes on all of your units. Or really the units that you're using. Because, without a doubt, the biggest power increase in this game comes from having gear. There is nothing that's going to boost your character's power level more than having a full set of gear with all of its upgraded substats, with all of its upgraded effects, with the main stat, with the crit, with the damage type bonuses, all of that. When this is maxed out, this is the biggest damage boost a character can have. And you want to know how you can prove it? Take a built character, remove all their echoes, and see what they do. They're absolutely useless. And so, getting this set and getting this built out and getting this going as soon as possible is going to make the rest of your Wuthering Waves journey from UL 40 onward incredibly smooth. But it takes some work to get all these qualifications going. Because, of course, you got to level up your databank first, because you get experience. However, leveling up the databank is actually really easy. So when you're starting out on your Wuthering Waves journey, right, every single time you collect an echo, you'll basically have the opportunity to get experience from it. And this is basically how it's... I'll move my chat a little bit so you guys can see this over here. Here's an example of a one-cost echo that I've collected on the gold rarity. That means that I got the 20 EXP from it being gold, 15 from it being purple, 10 from it being blue, and then 10 from it being green, right? Very simple, makes a lot of sense. If I were to collect this echo at the gold rarity and I didn't collect the previous 3, collecting it at the gold just gives me the experience for the previous 3. And so, the issue actually is, for grinding out this experience, it's the early levels. Where your highest drop rarity, right? You can see over here, it starts with green, then it gets to purple, then it gets to gold eventually, right? At level 15. By the time you hit level 15, you're likely going to be bottlenecked by your union level in raising this. So don't worry too much about raising this level too high early on. It should just happen naturally, because you collect echoes from killing overworld mobs. That's all it is. And there's a base drop rate of 20% on every echo. And so, as you go through the overworld, you explore, you do all that stuff, you're just going to end up at a point where you're grabbing these. The goal is that once you're able to unlock gold echoes, like I said before, getting the gold drop will give you the experience for all the previous drops. So once you're level 15, knowing that there's a lot of echoes in the game, once you're level 15, any echo drop should just give you a shit ton of databank experience. And as you go through and you build out that roster, it's going to be really easy to get it to a high level. And once again, when you're at level 21, there's no functional difference in getting any more levels. It just gives you like more tubes and tuners and asteroid and stuff. So it's kind of just free rewards. That's why I haven't bothered with getting level 30 yet. But that's how it's going to work. So don't focus too much on trying to like slam up your databank level until you're like, again, at Union level 40. Because like I said before, guys, Union level 40 is the golden sort of mark in Wuthering Waves. And hopefully you're beginning to see why UL 40 is so important. Because the game essentially opens up for you in so many different ways. It gives you a lot more efficiency in grinding, wave plates, all of that. But then also a lot more potential to mess up too. Because you have so many more tools available. So now let's get on into, because we covered all of that stuff. We covered gearing. Now it's time to talk about farming echoes. So there's essentially 4 main ways to farm echoes in this game. I've already kind of talked about one of them. And the topic over here is going to be overworld grinding. So there is a bit of a interesting way. There's a bit of an interesting way that drops work in this game. And I'll just demonstrate a little bit of gameplay over here to show you all what I'm talking about. This game functions on a pity system when it comes to grinding. Every single time you fight an enemy, okay, Hivatia is kind of annoying, so, they have a chance of dropping an echo. So, let me just, she has a lot of iframes at the start of her. She has a lot of iframes at the start of her fight. It's probably the most annoying boss fight in the game, if I'm frankly gonna be real with you. Alright. We got it. And we also got an echo drop alongside it. That's how easy it is to farm in this game. Because every single time you kill an enemy, there's going to be a pity depending on the type of mob it is. You can see over here that we have cost 4 and then cost 1 and 3. That essentially translates into, for a certain character, how much that echo costs to equip. Because you have 12 slots, right? You have 12 slots on your character. This one costs 4. That's why it's a 4 cost. This one costs 3. That's why it's a... You get it, so on and so forth. And 1 cost echoes are typically meant to be like the smaller ones, the more frequent mobs in the overworld. 3 costs are kind of like elite enemies that you see in smaller groups, but they're still in the overworld. While these guys are the bosses, and they're usually only found in boss challenges or weekly challenges. It's pretty simple to understand, right? These guys are the easiest to farm because every 2 like kill counts, you'll drop an echo. Guaranteed. It could be every time, but it's guaranteed every 2. These 3 costs, on the other hand, that's guaranteed 1 in every 4 drops. You kill 4 in a row, that 4th one's gonna drop an echo, guaranteed. And for these 1 costs, they're like a 1 in 8. But there's so many of them, you're likely just gonna get them on their base drop rate. You know why? Because the base drop rate in the game from any enemy for any echo is already going to be, well, as you can see over here, 20%. So chances are you don't hit the 20% on the 4 costs because they have a 2 pity. You might hit them on the 3 because it's 4, but you're probably never going to hit them on the 1. And so what that means, right, is that when you're farming the overworld, 4 costs are typically going to be the easiest. But then as you go through, right, and you're looking at these guys, this is clearly a 1 cost, very small. These can oftentimes be the hardest to grind on a set. Now, there is a bit of a caveat here. And the new region, Lahai Roy, throws a wrench into a lot of this section over here. So 3.0 added in new mechanics. The first one being, there's now a 100% drop rate on not just the 4 cost echoes. This has been in the game the entire time. You can see I've already used one, right? But that's also going to be available for the 1 and 3 costs. So they've added in this quality of life to make it easier to grind these 1 and 3 costs because they got the feedback. These are actually harder than the 4s, but you'll have this to accompany the 4 cost drops too. Lahai Roy also seems to be bugged right now, where every single boss in the game, regardless of if you have the drops or not, will drop an echo. I hope they don't fix this bug. Maybe it's not a bug, but you'll see over here. I've already experimented with it. Even if these 15 drops run out, at least at the start of the patch, you were able to claim them infinitely. So I don't know if it got patched out or not. All I know is at the start of the patch, that's what it was like grinding echoes. So it was pretty simple. Now, we need to talk about another method for grinding. And that one's going to be tacit fields. This, in my opinion, is the fastest and probably the easiest and most repeatable way to grind. And this is how tacit fields work. You go in, you kill a bunch of enemies, right? And then you'll get drops. And those drops from the tacit field will essentially be a bunch of random echoes from the 2 sets the tacit field is indicating, tuners, which you need to level them up, and then tubes. That's pretty much it. There's only 2 sets for each tacit field, and so you can really hone down, right? You can hone down easily on the actual sets that you're grinding. However, these have the fatal flaw of costing wave plates. And so unless you're refreshing, right, spending asteroid or your solvents, you can't do these all the fucking time because you're going to run out. But if you're ever in a situation where it's a new patch release and you got a lot of solvents to spend, right, and I can give myself a lot of wave plates, sometimes I just grind a bunch of these. That's actually where I spent 60 wave plates during this patch, or 60 solvents, all on these tacit fields. So yeah, that's another method for doing that. I could show the gameplay of it, but tacit fields aren't particularly too interesting. Just know that they're the most expensive way to get these resources, but when you're in the end game loop as a player, you're just doing 2 of these every day and then logging off. So you'll get used to it in the long run. Now, let's talk about another method of grinding echoes. And this one's going to be a little bit specific. Oh, last thing that I'll say, and that I forgot about tacit fields. Tacit fields are only for certain characters on the Wuthering Waves roster. 3.x units use tacit fields. 2.4 units, like Lupa and Cartithia, use tacit fields. Units like Chacon, basically, every unit from 1.0 to 2.4 uses tacit fields. Then every unit from 3.0 onward uses tacit fields as well. For every unit between 2.5 and 2.8, they instead use this system called nightmare nests. And these kind of suck. So essentially what these are is there are 36 spawns of these 3 TDs every single day. And these TDs have a chance of dropping echoes. And the echoes that they'll drop will be from this specific set. And these specific sets are only for specific 2.5 to 2.8 units. You got Chisa, you got Galbrena, you got Chuyan, you got Augusta and Yuno, and then you got Frolova. And then you got some forecast echoes in here as well, but I don't want to say that like these count really as nightmare nests. They're kind of just like regular forecasts. But that's how these work. And you can only do these once a day. However, they don't cost any stamina. They don't cost any wave plates. And what you just want to make sure is that you consume this thing called sweet and sour pork, which you can look the recipe up for online. I'm not going to put it in the guide. There's already videos out there on how to craft this shit, which will increase your drop rate. And you just want to make sure that you're stuffing your pie hole with this shit before you do any of those nightmare nests, not before tacit fields. And you can also use this for overworld farming as well, but you really want these for the nightmare nests. Because, like I said before, you can only do these once a day. And when these are the only way to acquire these sets in the game, these suck. Because if you're trying to build a character and you need nightmare nest materials, well, guess what? You're literally gated on how many echoes you can get a day. So it just takes naturally longer to build characters on sets when this is the method that's used. However, in terms of a long-term grind, being a character that uses this set is fantastic because, well, getting the echoes is free, and if you really want to min-max over like a month, well, you're getting 36 potential drops a month. You'll have thousands of echoes to roll on. You should be able to get a perfect build if you really want to. But that's that. Now, the last point when it comes to farming is a new feature added in 3.0. And this basically is telling me that Kuro's figured it out. These are called TD nests. And basically what these are is just 48 spawns of enemies that drop these 3 sets. And I'll be real with you, this is probably the best method that they've done yet. It just spawns a fuck ton of enemies. You eat your sweet and sour pork, and then you just grind a bunch of these sets. And these each reset once a day. And they're incredibly efficient. And when you combine that with the fact you can grind these and the same sets in tacit fields, character building has never gotten easier. And if you wanted my perspective, 3.0's units are the easiest to build in Wuthering Waves history. It's never been easier. And it's If you do plan on pulling 3.x units, what I will tell you is that you are probably some of the most privileged bunch in the player base. Because it was not like this for the 1.x units. Building these characters that use sets like this, it was hell. So yeah, the experience is much better now. And like I said before, make sure you got the sweet and sour pork if you're farming for these two or in the overworld, because these drops will be based off your actual echo drop rate. So do keep that in mind. All right, we've spent a lot of time focusing on some of the administrative stuff, but not the actual gearing part, the leveling part of the gearing process. And what better way for us to kind of like show that off than to just demonstrate it, right? With one of the newest units that we're going to be having in the game. So let's just take a look at this over here, right? We're on the Echo building section. And what I want to show you guys right now, when it comes to Echo leveling, what mistakes to avoid. So let's just say I want to upgrade, because this Hivatia forecast over here has some pretty bad stats. A minimum crit rate roll of 6.3, a minimum crit damage roll, and then 3 other subs that aren't highlighted. They don't look very good. Flat defense, flat attack, defense percentage. I don't really like it. So now I want to upgrade. This is how I would do it. This would be the process of how I'd upgrade this. Let me take this Hivatia, that's defense, and first use a modifier on it. We get a lot of modifiers for free in this game. And I could change its main stat to critical damage. Boom. Easy. Right? Now, I want to see if this thing has good substats. I've already spent some resources on it. Let's just see what the substats are looking like. I'm going to roll it 1 level at a time. I don't need to do that. I could just do this, where I go no cap and level up all the way to 25 and unlock all 5 substats at once. So this is the part of the video where I intentionally brick my own account for the video. I'm going to do that. And I'll show you why this is potentially bad. Ref. And this is the reason why. My first substat was great. My second substat was not that good. My third one was really bad. And my fourth was fucking awful. The fifth one's okay, but it's not what I needed. I needed crit damage. And so, essentially, I have just wasted every single resource that I put into essentially leveling this past the first level. But I didn't know it was going to be useless until probably the 4th level. And this is the thing. Let me show you how much experience it costs to take a level 20 Echo to level 25. That cost me 13 gold tubes. But it only cost me 10 tuners. Now let's see what happens, right? When I take a level 0 Echo, right? And try to level it up to +1. How many tubes does that cost? That costs 1. And I'm consuming 10 tuners. Let's see how much experience those 13 gold tubes would give me. So, in the amount of tubes it costs to go from level 20 to 25, I could have taken 1 Echo from 0 to 18. Do you see why some people have a tuner problem while others have a tube problem? Let me show you why. Because there's a lot of people who are just blindly leveling up every Echo to +25. And they're wasting a bunch of tubes. You know why? Why would I level this thing up to 25? It's got some of the... It doesn't have the substats that I need. I want double crit. There's no chance this could be double crit. So there's no point in even leveling it. But people do this anyways because they're lazy, right? Because they're like, I don't want to think. I'm just going to press 1 button. Let's see where it goes. And then afterwards, they're like, why don't I have any resources? Kuro's so stingy. Guys, Kuro Games is so stingy. They're not giving me any stuff. But all I do is click 1 button and waste everything. Where's my stuff? That's the players that have resource issues in this game. They don't even think about where any of their shit is going. They don't think about the fact that they're spending 13 tubes to get 1 level and spend 10 tuners when 13 tubes is enough to take 1 Echo to level 18. And you want to know what the worst part about this is? It's when a piece is bricked, right? Let me just say that this one's not good because it doesn't have the stats that I want. People do this very often as well. They take a +25 Echo that they slammed, right? I think this was the one that this was like one of the ones that I slammed, right? I don't want this. This is dog. This is the one we just slammed. And then they just put it into another one. Let me show you what the fatal flaw this is. This is taking my echo up to plus 22. If I do this, I'm throwing away echo experience if I don't take this up to plus 25. Let me show you how this is bad. Again, I'm wasting my resources for fun. If I do this, it's useless. I can't use it, but I've spent the experience to take this from 20 to 22. How much does it cost to go from 20 to 22? I just spent 5 gold tubes on literally nothing. I have this plus 22 echo. It's going nowhere. And I spent 5 tubes to take it from 20 to 22 and did nothing. It's useless. And you know what they do after this? Then they take another plus 0 echo and then take that plus 22 one and then put it back in as well. Do you guys see how this just turns into like a cascading brick effect? Where the echo started at level 25 and then 2 echoes later, I turned a plus 25 one into a plus 20. Because I'm too lazy to upgrade and dismantle my echoes properly. Because you want to know what happens, guys? When you're refunding an echo, only 70% of the experience and only 30% of the tuners are refunded. So by doing this, you're essentially throwing echo experience away for no reason. And if I ever see somebody plus 25 slamming and then taking those slammed echoes and then using them right to fuel other echoes, that person has no leg to stand on when they say they're running out of echo experience. When Kuro's so greedy and they don't have resources. No, dumbass, this is you getting your paycheck from work, lighting it on fucking fire, and then yelling at your boss that they don't pay you enough. No, they pay you enough. You just can't manage your fucking money. And let me show you the proper way to manage your money that a lot of players have recognized by now, but they haven't put into practice just yet. And this is the method over here. It's called recycling your echoes. Let's take a look at this piece over here. I don't like it. I'm going to click Z to dump it. Now, when I click this, I click the trash menu. I can select echoes that I know are trash, that I'm never going to use because the substats are dookie dog dog doody water. I click remove. I don't worry about the prompt. It is scary. And would you look at that? I just get the raw experience and tuners that I would have gotten from spending this to level up other echoes. They just go back into my inventory. And so now, instead of taking echoes to plus 22, I just get their experience worth in gold tubes. And do you know what that means? Now I can just go ahead and through the echo building process, right? I now have just tubes that I can put in one by one, right? To level it up this way. Because, guys, right? And again, I'm just going to do a modifier for the sake of modifiers. This allows me to do this. I can then proceed to select this where it only goes by level caps and now just level it one substat at a time. Great. I love that. Basic attack damage is a great substat. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep rolling now. I like that substat. HP. Oh, I don't really like that, but if the next one is crit, I'll keep rolling this. Because this is getting more and more expensive each time, right? More and more expensive each time, but the tuners are costing the same. Let's see. Are we going to get crit here? Ooh, we got ER. And now this is where I have to make a decision. Am I going to min-max or am I going to be safe? Because when building echoes in this game, for most characters, you want a blend of this. I'll show you an ideal echo. You want a blend of double crit with a damage stat and then either ER or another damage stat for an ideal 4 out of 5. Another example of a 4 out of 5 is this one, right? Attack, crit rate, crit damage, and ER. I'm at the point where on this echo, I've gotten 2 of the stats that I really like. However, it's not crit. And so for this echo to be usable, I'll need to roll crit damage and then crit rate or vice versa. And if it isn't, it's not usable. I'm basically in a situation where if I roll this I'm going to be spending a lot of resources. 8 tubes is a lot just to like see if this is it. And if it's not crit, I've kind of just wasted everything. I kind of just wasted those tubes, right? I will get them refunded, but 30% of them are lost, and then 70% of these tuners are lost. But if it does hit crit, and then another crit, it's a 4 out of 5 piece, and it's a best in slot. And that's the risk. And that's kind of some of the strategy when it comes to this game, because yes, gearing is RNG, but there's a strategy to how much RNG you're going to expose yourself to. And so I'll roll it for shits and giggles, but I'll probably get fucked. And that's the thing. Sometimes you gamble and it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll show you a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where it does pay off. Because one thing that I like about Wuthering Waves is that it lets you know when you've rolled certain subs. For example, I rolled these 3 as my first 3 substats. Attack, crit rate, and crit damage. Do you think it was a question for me at all to roll the next 2? No, there was no decision to make here. I actually leveled it up straight to plus 25 after this. And so while on the, I just described to you a situation, right, with this Echo, where you gotta like do risk analysis and stuff like that and see whether or not it's worth the expenditure. Don't worry, guys. You'll get echoes like this where it's a fucking no-brainer. There's no decision to make, and you just won. Here's an example of where that happened. Just 4 rolls in a row that are perfect and exactly what you're looking for. There is no decision to make there. You just keep going. You just keep going. And that's what I mean. So that's going to be our echo leveling section. And it was a little bit complicated, but it was pretty important. Now, these are probably going to be way faster tips. Just because we've gotten through the most complicated stuff, but this is still going to be very important. We're going to be going through some of the free rewards that beginners have, because you can make mistakes, especially in 3.0. So, when beginners start out the game, they're going to gain access to a lot of different things. First and foremost, they're going to get access to a beginner... Let me go find the official page for it. You'll gain access to a special banner for basically the first 30 or so days that you play the game. And the only real pick to make from here, if you do decide to pull on this banner early on, is Shorekeeper. There's nobody else worth pulling. However, you have a chance of losing 50-50 on this banner. That's why there's 160 convenes. And when you get a 5-star, the banner disappears. This is my take. If you plan on Giga optimizing your playthrough, you can like try to get her and then re-roll your account if you don't. I don't really think it's worth it. I also don't even know if it's overall worth even pulling her in the present when you do have potential replacements like Mornier coming out in the future as well. So if you do want a guaranteed level of performance, I would say pulling Shorekeeper is a safe bet. But this is a character as well. When you see what her healing set is capable of, she's probably going to fill a somewhat similar role. But this is a solid choice, and it's also going to be the only choice in all respects from the new Voyage Resonator Convene if this is something that you want to do. There are some other bonuses, though, when it comes to being a new player, and that's the fact that you get free standard characters as well. One of these characters is going to be random, right? An Encore, Ling Yang, Calcharo, Johnshin, or Verena, based off of who you get off of the introduction banner. Because it's like 40 pulls, and then you get a random standard unit. You probably want a Verena from that. However, when you do the new beginner event, you'll just be able to choose one of these characters for free to claim. And this is my take. Out of all the standard characters, ladies and gentlemen, in the big 2025, I'm going to be real with you. You probably actually want this unit, Verena, because she's one of the best healers in the game. And you actually want Ling Yang or Calcharo. I'm not joking. These two are now the best standard units in the game. And the reason for that is simple, ladies and gentlemen. You want me to explain why? Because this is designed for new players. And do you know what we've just gotten added to the game? New standard weapons that essentially work perfectly with the old units. Calcharo, for example, really likes this weapon. And he's really good with this weapon on him. Ling Yang also really likes this weapon too. And if we're going at it from the comparison of who can you pull on the standard banner and well, who can you pull on with all your standard pulls Well, let's be real here. What's better for a player? Pulling Encore and then choosing one of the shitty standard weapons for an Encore? Like this? The thing that gives ER? Or Cosmic Ripples and then go pull Encore and do that? Or is it better to get Ling Yang or Calcharo and just get a good weapon? What do you guys think? Is it better to choose Encore and then pick a dog shit weapon? Or choose a Ling Yang or Calcharo that both have standard weapons? With those picks of Calcharo and Ling Yang, as well as those two standard options that you have available, I think that those are going to be easily the most cost-efficient options that a player is going to be able to have. Because the reasoning is very simple. This boosts liberation damage, Calcharo is a liberation broadblade user, and then this boosts basic attack damage, and Ling Yang is a basic attack gauntlet user. So it all works out pretty damn well overall, lines up pretty good. There are some individuals out there that might be suggesting that you pull Encore and then get String Master for her. Awful idea in 2026, especially when you consider the fact that, yes, pulling a String Master in 2026 for a standard unit is one of the worst use of your limited pulls ever, because that could just get you a limited weapon. It could just get you one of these instead. Like, they're telling you to pull String Master instead in 2026. That's not that great of an idea, because why would you be using Encore as a DPS other than... There's no point in using Encore as an endgame DPS in 2026 because there's 700 other characters. Like, nobody is planning on using Encore as a main DPS in 2026, and anyone suggesting that is unfortunately spreading misinfo. So let's try to move on from this Encore suggestion as soon as possible. There's no real point anymore when the standard weapons are this good and you're just going to get people to break their accounts. So Encore, String Master, all of that, that's a time of the past. That is pre 3.0. That is 2025. But when we're in 2026, when we're moving onward, it's not Encore anymore, ladies and gentlemen, especially for a new player. So yeah, that's going to be just a little bit when it comes to the weapons, but there's also going to be another bonus that you have as well, ladies and gentlemen, and that's going to be other new player rewards. So there's a box that you get at UL45 that essentially gives you a selection of standard weapons from not the new selection of 3.0 weapons, but the old selection of 1.0 weapons. And this decision is much harder to make than ever before because while there's only two options to pick, both options are incredibly good. You'll be able to select one of these for free at UL45. Your choices mainly are Emerald of Genesis, which is a DPS or sub-DPS weapon, and then Static Mist, which is exclusively a sub-DPS weapon. My take on this is very simple. Your choice here depends on what you feel like playing, because both weapons are incredibly good and you should have a copy of them on your account at one point. And the reason is very simple. EOG works well with Rover, the main character, who can also serve as a DPS themselves in Havoc form. Rover is actually a really, really good DPS with Lene. It's actually surprising how strong Havoc Rover and Lene, who's on banner right now, perform. It's one of the better teams in the game, actually. It clears pretty much all the content. Then, however, Static Mist is the best sub-DPS weapon in the game on the standard roster, and it's for a pistol user. And there are a lot of pistol users, namely only two, who use it very well. Mortefi, who buffs heavy attacks and is a 4-star, and Lene herself. My take is this. If you plan on pulling Lene, it's probably better to spend your box on Static Mist. That's my take. If you plan on pulling Lene, I would just get Static Mist from the UL45 box, because that's her second best in slot weapon, and she's an incredible unit. But if you don't plan on pulling Lene, then get Emerald of Genesis, because there's not really that many users for Static Mist outside of, Chakota, Mortefi, and Lene. Yeah, there's like 3 characters that use it, but it's very good on them. So if you don't plan on getting any of those 3 anytime soon, just go for EOG instead with that UL45 box. But yeah, when it comes to the standard weapons, I'll just give you my top picks over here. It's going to be Phasic Homogenizer, which is going to be the DPS pistol. Very good. and then Radiance Cleaver, and then Pulsation Bracer. So these are going to be the 3 main picks on the new standard weapons. These are the 2 only picks on the old standard weapons. So that's something to keep in mind, because as a new player, guys, one thing that you actually get a lot of, you get a lot of these standard pulls as a new player. And one thing that you got to remember is spend all of them on the weapon banner, because you can select your weapon. You can choose which one you want. If you spend them on the character banner, guys, you can't even choose, and it's all random. And you get characters when you lose 50-50s. You can't lose weapon banners in this game, so the only way to get the standard weapons is with standard pulls on this banner. So don't spend your standard pulls anywhere else. Don't spend them here, only spend them here. That's another bit of advice in that section. And now, our last tip. And this one's going to be really important. And it's going to involve us being on the banner menu, because this is probably one of the most important times ever for this last tip. Prioritize your pulls depending on what you want to do. Because the end game in this game is kind of devilishly simple in how it's designed. You just want a lot of teams to be able to complete the content. In Tower of Adversity, you want between 3 or 4 teams. In Wuthering Waves, you really only need 2, but then the resistances cycle very often, so you kind of more like want 3 or 4. And then, in the new Doubled Pawns Matrix, ladies and gentlemen, you need 4 teams for the maximum Astrite rewards, right? That are all able to clear relatively, challenging fights. And as you can see, that means you want to build and pull. You want to pull units and weapons with teams in mind. For example, Linné is a sub-DPS character that really buffs units that deal liberation damage. If I pulled her on phase 1, what should I do in phase 2? Maybe in phase 2, where is the character on banner. Where does she deals high amounts of resonance liberation damage. And so if I pulled Linné, who buffs liberation damage, it probably makes sense for me afterwards to pull the character that deals the damage type that this unit buffs. It's pretty logical, right? Similarly, if there's a character like Cartithia that doesn't deal liberation damage, but really likes having arrow erosion on her team, then I make sure that I pull Chacona and make sure that she has a team that actually can function. But that's the issue. That's the problem. There are some units that work together with a lot more units than others. There's actually a lot of them. And this banner is one of the best examples to show how different characters can be. Linné works with like 10 units on the roster. Cartithia works with like 2. Pulling Cartithia is inherently lower value to your account. It's a fact. I'm sorry. There are less teams and less content you can clear with Cartithia on your team. If you pull Linné, you open up the door to so many more routes to clear content and the end game, which is again the focus of this video. If I pull Linné, now having a Zhang Liao gives me a team. Having a Yuno gives me a team. Having a Camellia gives me a team. Having a Carlotta gives me a team. With Cartithia, I don't have a team until I pull Chacona. That's the Cartithia issue. I don't have a team until I really pull Chacona. And that means she only has like one exclusive partner that she works with well. My take on the 2 best units to pull in this version update 3.0 is actually these 2 units. And the reason for this is very simple. Pulling Yuno and Augusta gives you 3 teams. You have a free-to-play team where you combine Augusta, who deals heavy attack damage, with the 4-star Mortefi, who buffs heavy attack damage. Then you throw in like a Verino or a Baijo or a Shorekeeper and you got a team. Then you have Yuno, who you can buff with Chacona, John Jin, or of course, Linné herself, and she leads her own team as a DPS. Then you have a 3rd team, where you then have Augusta, who gets supported by Yuno, and that's the strongest team out of the 3. But simply from pulling these 2 characters and having some supplementary units on the side, I've managed to turn these 2 units into 3 separate teams. This unit only has 1 team ever. And like the only thing you do is you switch out Arrow Rover for Chisa. And like that's all you can do. There's not really anything else going on. And so, By pulling this unit, you've essentially put a ceiling on the potential for your account. She's not going to work with some new release that comes out right in like 3.5. Maybe she will. But because her kit is so specifically tailored and designed to work around erosion, if the character doesn't have erosion, she's probably just, there's just never even going to be a future with that unit. And that's what I mean when I'm saying plan your teams. Because you don't want to be in a situation where you pull this unit, but then you don't have the pulls to get this unit, and then this unit just sits here and feels like dog ass because you don't have the tools you need to work with her. But if you were to pull just Augusta, or sorry, pull Yuno, and then skip Augusta, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of people that did that, and they're not unhappy. They don't feel like Yuno needs Augusta to work. They don't feel like Augusta needs Yuno to work. It's great when you have both of them together. It feels awesome. But when you only have one, you don't feel like you're missing the other. And that's why it's really important to keep in mind how these kits and these units are designed. Because you want to know something about Lene. She's one of the only units in the game that can apply Tune Strained or Tune Rupture, right? And Mornier and likely other 3.0 units are the only characters that can respond to this. And so the idea is that if you're really interested in these debuffs, this is a little bit like the Chacona, the Cartithia situation, right? Not as major, because I don't think this ability is even that strong. It doesn't deal that much damage. It's like an extra 80k every time you break them, which is like a Shorekeeper intro skill. So it adds on like a Shorekeeper intro skill every rotation. It's whatever. But that's something you got to keep in mind as well as you're thinking about future pulls too. And so clearly a lot of these systems are built in. We've had recent releases that go against some of those problems, but other releases that seem to really magnify the issues even further. But that's why I'm saying plan your teams and plan your pulls so that if you do have units that feel like they need each other. The B-roll over here is completely unrelated, by the way. Yeah, I have no idea why I'm tabbing between these two units. Anyways, yeah, you just want to make sure if you're ever in a situation where if two units feel like they need each other to function, you're not missing the other. So maybe just don't pull the units that need other units to function. Just that simple. But yeah, those are going to be the main mistakes that I've seen people making in 2025. And with 2025 being the year of negative statuses and tailored teammates and bricked accounts from people not knowing how tailored those teammates were, it's a great opportunity for us to reflect, go back, look at some of the instances in the past, and move forward from there. Naturally, we covered a lot of regular tips too, just for like the average player. And then the stuff towards the end got a little bit more theoretical, but obviously a little bit more helpful too. Maybe even stuff that experienced players can also keep in mind. But yeah, with that, that's going to be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be our new player guide, the worst mistakes you can make in 2026. And here's to hoping you don't actually make them this year. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.